kV. So the amp is basically powering the whole ship when it's in port.
That is correct.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's pull the cables over.
So you guys there getting these cables together, still checking a little voltage as they do for every amp hookup, which is a safety issue. And then we're going to hook this up in a second, plug into the main amp area where they bring in energy from the port, and it powers the ship the whole time they're in dock. And that's equivalent to about 69,000 miles of diesel trucks.
Go ahead and plug them in, guys.
Let's check it out. We're going to plug in now. So what are we doing now, Chuck?
We're going to go ahead and actually plug in the connection.
I took a tour of this container ship to see the amp in action.
This is the heaven for the chief engineer. And they monitor everything that is going on board the vessel. From a ballast tank point of view, from a fuel tank point of view, from an electrical load point of view, you name it. These ships are really like factories.
Yeah, there's an amazing little mission control in here, basically.
Yeah, things have changed from the days of sailing ships.
Just a little bit, right?
Just a little bit.
Right, so this is where the chief engineer would spend most of his time?
Most of his time.
When the ship is up and running on the sea?
At any given
takes care
time,
of all
this is where they hang out.
Well, at least it's cool in here.
Now, James, if you think that your engine in your car is big and powerful, wait until you see this.
Wow,
this here is the main engine on an ocean-going vessel.
God,
12
that's
cylinders.
the engine, Eric. God, it's huge.
12 cylinders.
12 cylinders. So it goes all the way down the hull.
All the way down the hull. These are direct drive engines. They don't have a gearbox. When the ship moves, or the ship only moves when the engine is turning.
Right.
When the ship has to go in reverse, the engine basically comes to a dead stop and they refire the cylinders in a different sequence, and that reverses the propeller. It's just like in the Titanic, you know, remember the movie when you see the guys reversing when they're trying to avoid the ice?
I don't know if we want to talk about the Titanic in there, but yeah. Let's go down and check it out.
Same idea. 70,000 horsepower.
Wow, that's huge.
Now you're hearing a lot of noise, and some of that noise is actually the diesel generator. Because, as I said, these are direct drive engines. When the ship comes alongside, that engine is off. But the one that runs is a diesel generator to produce all that electricity that the ship needs. And with our shore power program, with our AMP program, what we're doing is we're shutting down those diesel generators and get a bunch of clean air as
It's
a
going to
result.
get quieter in here.
It will get a bit quieter.
No more diesel burning.
And no more diesel burning. Well, let's go and check it out. That's it.
Good.
So far the power is up to the vessel already. And now we have to close the breaker.
So what are we doing here?
They're basically waiting to see, they want the power to come to the ship first, and once they see the power here, they close the breaker and then they'll transfer it to the vessel, and that gets it to the next stage, and they'll be in a position to shut off the diesel generator. Generally speaking, a ship of this size, an 8,500 TEU ship, will have a load of about 2 megawatts when she's connected to shore power.
2 megawatts.
2 megawatts.
And what does that mean exactly for the clean air? What's the benefit for us?
Well, it's really fantastic. When the ship is connected to shore power, you know, during the port stay, we're basically saving about a ton of emissions. NOx, SOx, and diesel particulate matter, all combined about a ton on a per vessel port call. But more importantly, we're also saving on greenhouse gases, and so we're saving about 4 tons of greenhouse gases with a ship of this size.
They make fresh honey every week, right here. The honeycomb. Okay, that was an awesome tour, man. Seeing the inner workings of a vessel like this is pretty amazing, yeah?
It is an absolutely phenomenal piece of equipment, and it's what makes international trade possible, and we're doing it in a very clean and environmentally friendly way.
Right.
It's a great program. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Hey, I want the AMP to catch on around the world now.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Good seeing you, James. Thanks for coming down.
Up next, Sheila Gonzalez tours the port's first annual Cars and Stripes Classic Car Show.
Assembly Line. Today, the Port of Los Angeles has transformed the Gateway Plaza into a nostalgic exhibition of classic cars with a Cars and Stripes celebration. From individual collectors to local car clubs, there's everything from rumble seat coupes to classic roadsters on exhibit. Let's get behind the wheel, talk to the owners, and find out what it takes to keep these beauties in showroom condition.
My name is Patrick Morales. This is my 41 Chevy Special Deluxe.
Pancho, can you tell me about your car?
Sure. It's a 41 Chevy Special Deluxe. These cars were made right before the war. After this, they stopped making cars. They did make a few 42s, but then they cut it off. And they didn't make any more Chevys until 1946.
Wow. So when did you start collecting cars?
I just bought this about a year ago. I bought it from a friend.
So what does it take? What kind of cost does it take to keep the upkeep and restoration going?
It doesn't take much, but it takes a lot of hard work. A lot of elbow grease.
A lot of elbow grease.
Yeah.
All right.
But would you like to sit in it?
I'd love to sit in it. Oh my gosh. Oh, she's beautiful. Oh my God. It's gorgeous. Gosh, a real work of art.
Thank you.
Real
Thank
work
you.
of art. May we see under the hood?
It's still, oh sure. This is it's an original engine,
Oh my gosh.
6-cylinder Chevy. In 1941, they called the engine the Blue Flame. And everything's original. It runs great. Still runs great.
Oh, they don't make them like this anymore, do they?
No, they don't.
My name is Geraldine Natz, and I'm the owner of this 1957 pink T-Bird. All right.
T-Bird.
Thank you.
Where did you find your car?
You
It's
know,
gorgeous.
we bought it on the internet. I've been looking for a couple years, and my husband came down the stairs. This is the car, and it was in a museum in Illinois.
Oh my
And so, you know, you send money away, you know, to some place and people you don't even know, and you hope it shows up. But it did.
So what inspired you to want to start collecting?
Well, I'm not really collecting cars, but this was a birthday present to myself.
My goodness.
And license plate, you see a license plate 57 in pink?
Yes.
So that should give you a
That
hint.
should give me a hint.
Yeah, what birthday it was.
So when you're driving and you take it out on the road, how fast does it actually go?
You know, the speedometer, I don't think the speedometer reads right, because when I'm going like 40 to 50, I feel like I'm flying. So we think the speedometer is about 10 miles per hour, you know, less than it really is. But usually I drive it with the top off, you know, in the summer.
In the summertime.
Yeah, right.
How often do you take it out?
You know, we try and take it out once a month.
Oh,
you want to look under the hood?
I'd love to.
I know
look under
just
the
girls
hood.
love looking
We
under
love
the
looking
hood.
at the hoods under the hood. There it is.
Right. When it stops,
Whoa.
so wow.
Wow.
That's the engine, I think.
Where does the water
Yeah, like
go?
battery.
On the
Yeah,
battery.
I don't know. I don't know. I used to know cars like this. My first car had all this stuff. Actually, one good thing about an old car is my husband knows how to fix it.
It's beautiful. It is absolutely.
So all I cared about was the color. I saw the color, and that was it. Right, exactly. That was all I wanted was a pink car.
Do you know any of the history behind the car?
No, I knew that a man in Wisconsin owned it. We had it in a show at the Muckenthaler, and my husband found somebody underneath the car, and the guy was under the car checking some things, and my husband asked him, well, what are you doing? He says, I know the person who restored this car, because he was checking to see if it was paint underneath. It was a frame-off restoration.
Okay.
And so I guess that was the original one. It was originally white, and he wanted a pink one. And so I guess this man had it for his daughter, and I guess she was going to college or something and wanted money instead, so we put it up for sale on the internet. So,
Now, is this pink a special pink? Is it a special name for this pink?
well, Sunset Coral was one of the Thunderbird colors. I'm not exactly sure if this is Sunset Coral. They did have another, you know, coral sand, but it was my kind of pink. It's really almost a coral color.
Yeah,
Because I've gotten went out and bought all these pink clothes, and then I realized I don't match my car, so it was a little harder to find. So.
Okay, it's gorgeous. My name is Perry. This is my 1967 Austin Healey. So, Perry, can you tell me a little bit about your car here? History about it. We bought this probably about 15 years ago. It took my late husband and I 15 years to restore. Okay. British European restored it for us fully. It was torn down, and we've had it ever since. I've had it ever since. I love it. Really? Now, how did you buy it? How did you find it? Some guys were buying a bunch of British cars, and this one, I guess they needed some extra money, so we paid $1,500. It had a bird's nest in the engine. Oh, no! Yeah. It was around. Yeah, it was totally torn apart, and there was nothing left. And we just bought parts and gradually got it up to, restore it. Can you tell me a little about the interior of the car and the upholstery? Well, this was totally redone. I can't tell you, it wasn't like this when we purchased it. Okay, what did it look like when you purchased it? Oh, it smelled. The bird. We didn't add a radio to it. We just kept the integrity of the original dash. Everything's original in the car. Okay. And they redid all the upholstery here in the car. Everything's redone. Especially in the trunk. In the trunk too? Yeah, but it's full of stuff I know, but everything is totally restored. So do you take her on the freeway? Do you drive her out? Okay. Oh yeah. It's good on the freeway. It's good on the freeway? It really rides well. It has an overdrive. So yeah, it does really ride well. Other than car shows, where else do you exhibit her? This is probably one of the first car shows I've ever brought this car to. Okay. Yeah, I'm really. Yeah. Okay, good. Great. All right. I feel a big privilege for the Port of LA to do this and go on to it. Well, thank you for considering this as your debut moment. This is great. She's beautiful.
I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Portfolio. I'm James Ramirez, and we'll see you next time.
Good morning. Emergency Preparedness Patrol. Is your family prepared for disaster? Mom! Emergencies can strike at any time. That's why it's important to have a family emergency plan in case you're separated during a disaster. Have an emergency supply kit ready with non-perishable food items such as dry goods, canned goods, and water. Don't forget extra medication for elderly family members. And extra pet food, too. Include a first aid kit, a battery-operated radio, extra batteries, and, of course, a waterproof flashlight. And to reduce the risk of serious injury, fasten all freestanding items securely, including water heaters. This family gets a passing grade for being prepared. Emergency preparedness. It's an LA thing.
Bulky item pickup? Call 311, the toll-free number for non-emergency services. 311, your one call to City Hall.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
Good morning, Los Angeles. From City Hall, this is the City Council meeting for Wednesday, April 7th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Han, Weezer, Caress, Krikorian, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti, 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Very well. First item, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Parks and Ms. Krikorian, seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Labange, Mr. Koretz.
And, Mr. President, before beginning the regular agenda, there's a request to continue several of the items on the agenda. Item number 2, a request to continue that matter to Tuesday, April 13th.
Without objection, number 2 is continued.
Also request on number 3 to continue that matter to the 21st.
Without objection, number 3 is continued.
And also items 4, 5, and 6, request to continue those to Tuesday, April 13th.
Those items without objection are continued.
And that would leave on the agenda item number 1, which is an item for which public hearing has been held, and I don't believe there's an action required on this matter. It would depend on what council's pleasure is.
Council members, item number 1. Mr. Parks, item number 1 regarding our fiscal situation.
No. The one thing we should be aware of is the financial status report will come out this week, be in committee on Monday and council next week, and that will give us the most up-to-date position we are as a city.
Very well.
And then, so that would be no action on this item then.
Very well.
Next item is an item for which
Mr. Labange? Excuse me, I didn't see you on the queue. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. Accept your apology, Mr. President.
Profusely apologize.
I just came from administrative office, and I think they're coming over here right now. From news reports, I hear that some drastic changes are proposed, and I want to know if we're going to be able to talk about them at this point. Mr. City Attorney, can we talk about these news reports?
The news reports are not on the agenda.
But it talks about the fiscal year, consideration, discussion, possible actions addressing the fiscal year right now. And in the news reports today, both metropolitan newspapers had big headlines that say the city was going to close. I still believe the city operates on the regular calendar. They're 7 days in a week, but they want to close the city. Have you heard that, Mr. City Attorney?
Who wants to close the city?
There can be a discussion of budget balancing matters under this agenda item. There can be. That's what it says, budget balancing matters. So if you want to incorporate that into this discussion,
right,
you're more than able to.
Well, I do, but I don't see our representatives from the administrative office here at this time. Are they expected? Do we know?
Well, we're just going through the agenda, and then what we can do is
lay this on the desk?
Yes.
Right.
We can do that, Mr. Labange.
Lay it on the desk.
And then we also have public comment. Madam Clerk, any other items on the agenda?
Yes, Mr. President. Item number 7 is an item for which public hearing has not been held, and I believe there's a card on it. Would you wish to call it special or take it up at this time?
We'll call it special.
Then that would take council back to public comment.
All right. Very well. We'll start with public comment. Public comment, Timothy Butcher. On public comment. Mr. Butcher, hold on one second. If you're here for a matter that's on the agenda, please fill out a card. Once that matter is called, we will not be accepting additional cards. So if you're here on an item, please fill out a card before the matter is called. Mr. Butcher, please proceed.
Thank you. Members of the council, once again, His Honor the Mayor has resorted to rash measures. Again, he has failed to learn from history that great leadership inspires and uplifts. Instead, it seems that he is resorting to the politics of shock and governance in the media. It seems a little bit like trying to fix the Titanic by putting a couple of torpedoes into her. I would encourage this body to be a council of leaders, not a council of lemmings. Do not follow the mayor in his knee-jerk politics over the cliff. Please continue to work with us. We can and we will, as members of Labor, find a way to fix the problem that we have in the city. We have worked together in the past. We will work together again with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butcher. John Walsh. John Walsh, our next speaker, HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you, Acting President Zine. HollywoodHighlands.org, indeed. 37,000 hits a week. Ladies and gentlemen, it is out of control. We have a mayor who should be drug tested. I want to see what's in his urine. 3-day week? What? Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? Go home on Tuesday and Thursday? Monday and Friday? Come in on Wednesday? The man doesn't know what he's doing. He is out of control. And I'm proud of every one of you 15 for standing up to the mayor as he holds out $74 million for you to sell out to taxpayers. He wants you on your knees. All 15 of you. He will play Clinton, and you will not play Monica Lewinsky. You will not. You will spit the mayor out. That's what we should have right now. Spit the mayor out. There is no mayor in this city, in this country, acting as bizarre as he is. Ladies and gentlemen, the arrogance is out of control. Look at the headline in the newspaper. The headline in the newspaper says, "City could go broke by June 30th. You see this? Then there is the mayor's newspaper, the LA Express. This is the only newspaper that pays attention to him. And it says massage guide, meet exciting singles. This is where the mayor should stop looking at his groin. The mayor should stop dating. The mayor should stop dating any newswoman he can find who's foolish enough to go with them. The mayor should realize that he is absolutely out of control. Come to HollywoodHighlands.org to know what's happening. And it's funny, when I attack your enemies, I'm never interrupted. It's only when I attack you that I'm interrupted. But remember, America and Russia fought together against the Nazis, and we will take down Antonio. Thank you. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Arnold Sachs. Arnold Sachs.
Yeah.
Mr. City Attorney, I object to the words of the last speaker and how he categorized representatives of government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange.
Again, you should let the council president know about your concerns.
He wasn't looking at me.
Mr. Sachs, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Arnold Sachs. I'd like to jump on the bandwagon of complaining about how the city and the council have acted, but it's old news. It's 2-3 years old why this situation's occurred. You've known about the deficits for 2-3 years. You've known about the fact that people would need to be laid off for 2-3 years. You've managed to manipulate the personnel, to move them around, to shuffle them around like chess pieces, never really facing this day, Armageddon Day, and it's here. The problem is, though, this $79 million that the DWP is banding about is 1% of the city's operating budget. And you have to wonder, with $79 million, and they just came before the council and got a rate increase back last August. How are they operating? How are they operating on such slim margins that within 6 months they're forced to balance $79 million? Use it as a leverage. We need this money, otherwise we need a rate increase, otherwise we won't be able to pay money. Well, why are they paying money if they need a rate increase to make more money? What is the symbiotic relationship of these proprietary departments? What happens with the airport? What happens with the harbor? Do they pay the city any funds? Why is it only DWP? DWP's foundation was based on deceit and discredit and manipulation. Those three parts of DWP have never changed. It's time to put a ballot measure on that will allow the public some input into what goes on into proprietary departments.
Daniel Garcia.
Hello, good morning. I just want to give you this. This is a form I gave you to you, and I want to read to you why the question now. It's called the diversity question. And number one, how diverse is the population you serve? How this population changed in the last 5 years, and do you foresee any changes in the next 5 years? Number three, what has been the biggest challenge in diversity you have faced? Number four, do you provide any type of training to the staff on diversity? My center is asking you to please come with the answers, and I appreciate it. I have another flyer for you that I would like to share with you that I'm involved. It's called Come to Participate in the System Change Advocacy Workshop. Do you know that the governor is trying to not only cut but also eliminate welfare program for people with disability and seniors in home care? And every fourth Wednesday of the month from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. I believe that I have answered.
Thank you.
This. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel Garcia. Henry Marine. Henry, last time I saw you at the gas pumps.
Good morning, one and all. The quote on this City Hall informed me of people that lack the consciousness to understand that things above and against their doors cannot be self-governed. The October 2nd council meeting revealed city attorneys fabricated cause to file suit against our first female controller and barred her from auditing any account administered in trust of an elected official. However, Laurie Schick obtained the services of a deferred fee attorney to help others understand the extra costs of not tending to the things above and against their own doors for the benefit of others. Channel 35 showed our second female controller begging this council and deputies of our new city attorney to stop wasting time and money and to drop this suit and end the need for the future services of Mr. Wucher. Attorney Wucher established his vested right to prevailing fee for helping our elected officials with accounting and trust decision problems. Chief Deputy Carter restated our new city attorney's desire to dismiss this suit and pay zero from his budget to Mr. Wucher. Mr. Carter deemed this council 100% responsible for the deeds of the deputy attorneys serving them. However, the same deputy attorneys that served this council worked at will against our controller and wrongfully interfered with accounting and reporting of funds held in trust for the benefit of others. That same day, the city clerk accepted my accounting accident claim. I requested that the money deferred by personnel for MOU-defined employee services be finally accounted and rolled over to Lacers, or taxed and paid as applicable. 45 days later, I received 2 unsigned letters on city attorney letterhead dated November 13th, 09. one was Post Park, Santa Ana, and one City Hall 90012. The letters informed me that a Labor Relations Division employee could not find anyone in that office that intends to retire willing to sign these letters denying payment to lacers. On December 16th, I provided Councilman Zahn my copy of the notices of Labor Division mistakes. More than 90 days have passed, and no one has notified me that this council denied this claim, and I'd like to submit this.
Alexia Fran, it's hard to read the name, the spelling. Say you, ma'am, Alexia?
Good morning. My name is Alexia Teran. I'm on the board of the Greater Cypress Park Neighborhood Council. I live in Cypress Park, 3319 Alice Street. I lived there for 44 years. I've been handicapped for 22 years, and I have been involved for a good 25 years of that time. And I am aware, and I have learned a lot from what the city does and elected officials, and I don't know everything. And I wanted to talk about number 3, but you removed that, so then I'm going to address some of the concerns that Councilman LaBonge mentioned, because I heard that last night, the night before, and this morning. And you know what? The deficit has been known for the past 10 years. The CAO mentioned that. So why didn't the elected officials do anything about this? Because they didn't care. Because prevention is a word that they have no idea what it's about. That word still exists in the dictionary. I've learned in my short life in this world of 69 years almost that prevention is the only way to address almost any issue except earthquakes. So then, why do the administrators that we elect to help us, because supposedly they know a little bit more than we do, but sometimes I'm wondering about that. They have their own agenda. I don't mind if everyone has their own agenda, but they still should do something for what they were voted in for, which is take care of the city and our needs. You take our money, and also you don't know what you do with this money. And you don't even take care of this beautiful city. This morning, my brain just stopped working. All of a sudden, I thought, what if we go back to what happened a few years back? You know what that is? The city is going to come up in an uproar, and do you want them to come out and burn the city? I don't want them to do that. I don't want them to go crazy like they did a couple of times in the past. So please, and I know most of you don't care what I'm saying, please listen to us for once in your life. Thank you.
That completes public comment for today. Thank you for the speakers. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, is item number 7, and that was called special for cards.
We have 2 cards on number 7. John Walsh. On number 7, Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh at Hollywood Highlands, HIGHLANDS.org. There'll be a big post this weekend. This is probably the most important issue of the past century, this agenda item. It concerns the exemption of one community affairs advocate position for the Harbor Department. Of course, we are against this. We need 5, 10, 15 of them, and we want this exemption to mean that that advocate can work 5 days a week. You know, I lived in Saudi Arabia for many years, and we had a 5-day week there too. But the days off were Saturday and Sunday. So wherever you go in the world, except in Antonio's world, 5 days a week you work. Only in L.A., Mr. 3-day. In fact, he'll probably come to 2 days. HollywoodHighlands.org. I don't need the full 2 minutes. I want you to go back in there, in the back, where you can talk amongst you one another without the mayor knowing what you say, and stick it to the mayor. HollywoodHighlands.org to find out what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Our final speaker on this, number 7, is Arnold Sachs. Arnold Sachs.
Thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs, a community affairs advocate for the Harbor Division. Yet you have community councils, neighborhood councils, and you're eliminating them. You're eliminating the voice of the neighborhood councils. But you want a community affairs advocate for the Harbor Department, another proprietary department that you really have no control over, that makes its own decisions, that makes its own rules, that acts on its own behalf, like LAX, the LAWA. Do we have a community advocate for LAWA? And the DWP. And we see what the community advocates, do we have community advocates at all for DWP? Why not all proprietary departments? Why not more than one community advocate? Because they have the same voice they have here. Everybody's doing something. Nobody's listening to this side of the podium. But your 6 minutes of fame, everybody pays attention for the wonderful job, yet the Titanic is sinking and settling on the bottom of the ocean. A great job. Thank you.
That matter is now before us. Ms. Perry, number 7. Ms. Perry? Number 7?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if there is money in their budget for this position.
Pardon me?
Is there somebody here that I can ask?
Can you say that again, please?
Money in the department's budget for
From Harbor Department?
position.
And the Harbor representative is here.
Good morning, council members. Yes, I'm Molly Campbell with the Port of Los Angeles, and we do have adequate funds to cover the cost of this position.
Okay, so just to be clear, we're hiring folks and you're laying folks off, right?
What we have done is we are hiring additional positions, even assisting with the general funded departments. What we have not done is made sure that the positions do not result in a bump up overall in our budget. So we're keeping basically our overall authorization in terms of the number of positions in our Harbor Department at the same number. That has not changed. Okay. So what we've done is look to see where our priorities are and backed off in places where we think we have a greater need, and this is one of them.
So this is a placeholder?
No, this is a request, so in terms of filling this particular position, but what we've done is offset it. So we don't go with a bump up, we're offsetting it someplace else.
Okay. So what are you
Ms. Perry, does that satisfy your question?
Yeah.
No one else is on the queue? Mr. Parks?
One of the things, just to clarify, last time you were here, you gave us an overview of how many positions you've absorbed from general fund. Is that growing, or?
We're still working towards the plan that we put before the council. We have a total of about 60 or 70 positions that are e-ripping and also vacancies, and we're working to fill those. As people leave the Harbor Department, we're working with the Personnel Department to hire general funded positions.
Now, do you have and within the limits of knowing how the budget's going, do you have a secure feeling that those jobs you're offering are going to be long-term commitments, or are you going to hit a bump at some point that your budget will not be able to continue sustaining those?
At this point, we're looking at these positions being long-term. What we are doing, again, to Councilmember Perry's concern, is we're offsetting it other places. So to the extent we had not planned on hiring 70 additional positions, we were trying to attrit and pull our budget back a little bit given our cargo projections. So what we're doing is offsetting it in other places.
Okay. And then as you move forward, your sense today, have you feel that you pretty well have saturated what you can absorb?
Yes.
Okay, so you're at that point now?
Yes.
And so everybody hears again, where are we on the numbers?
Right now, I believe, but I'd have to get you a stronger update, we have filled about 25 positions to date. There are positions that are currently filled that will become vacant as the retirements go forward, and we anticipate going through the process to fill those, and that's an additional 55 or so positions.
And then the position that you have before us today, is that a recent vacancy in which someone has left and you're refilling that position?
No, this is actually an additional position overall to the department, but it won't result in a head count bump up because we're trying...
It would result in what now?
It would not result in a bump up in our overall head count because what we're doing is just making sure our overall priorities is such that if we believe the community affairs advocate is important here, we're offsetting it somewhere.
Okay, so you're holding vacancies somewhere else?
Correct.
Okay, and they will be held through the life of this position?
Right, or deleted.
Okay,
So
now are they going to be cut from the budget where you're holding?
Yeah, they would
eventually?
result in, when the budget goes forward, both to our board and to you, we would reflect
So you're
that in
saying
the overall numbers.
you'd net out on the number of positions and it would be basically cost neutral?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Labange. Mr. Labange passes. Mr. Cardenas. Mr. Cardenas?
I thought you said Labange. I thought you said Labange. Anyway, what would this position involve as far as daily activity? What would this person do?
We currently have a position now that we have for someone in Wilmington, and they do on a day-to-day basis have some general outreach in the Wilmington area. We're trying to do the same thing in San Pedro. We have a $1.2 billion waterfront projects in San Pedro that they would be working with the various community groups there, council office, other agencies, as we move forward with various projects at the port.
So, but they're outreaching just to explain what's going on at the harbor. They're answering questions of the community. What exactly?
That would be part of their job as well. One of the things that we've found over the years as we move forward with some of our environmental document is we haven't done as good a job as we could in making sure that the community is fully aware of the project, what it entails, how it impacts them, and this position would focus on assisting us in doing that.
So, is this a position that we used to have at one time, or did we have this many community outreach people before at one time, or are we expanding into having more outreach people than ever before?
This is an expansion. We have one now that was recently added several years ago, and we found that to be extremely beneficial in moving our projects forward and informing the community. So we believe that this similar position on the San Pedro side would also be very helpful. So we're looking at two, one from Wilmington that we already have existing, and this would be the second one.
And when is the interview process likely to take place should this be approved?
Within the next several weeks. Should this be approved, we would go through the recruitment process and interviews, I would say, within the next 3 to 4 weeks.
How many languages does the current outreach person communicate in?
I know 2 for sure.
What are those languages?
Spanish and English.
Okay. And is that something that would be helpful in this other position, or is that something that other part of the community around the harbor may or may not exactly need that extra added benefit?
They may not need it as much, but we could leverage our existing position who already speaks another language to assist here, but it certainly would be helpful. But it's not as, I don't want to say not as needed maybe as the position in Wilmington.
And what's the pay range of this particular position?
I apologize. Just 1 second. I know, huh? I will get that to you in just a second, Councilman.
Okay.
I apologize.
Thank you. So if you could get us that information, I'd appreciate it. I think we have at least one more speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hahn? Ms. Hahn on this matter?
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I really appreciate this line of questioning, this line of concern. As you remember, the last time a position like this came forward, I was the one that really question it in these economic times. Is this the right time to create a particular position at the port? But I will tell you, on this one, I've spoken at length with the general manager, Geraldine Natz, and talked to her about our common vision for this position. And frankly, colleagues, I think in these tough times, one of the important missions that the port is embarking on is the final development of the waterfront. Actually, the waterfront in San Pedro and Wilmington have both been approved. And I'll tell you, we need someone at the port who can continue to remind the port that they do have another obligation besides just moving cargo in and out of this region's economic engine. They do have an obligation to the people of California. You know, we hold our ports in trust for the people of California up and down the state. And there is more to this trust between the people and the port than just how much cargo moves in and out of our port. We have an obligation to return access to the waterfront to the people. And Los Angeles has a waterfront. And it should rival the waterfronts of, in my opinion, San Diego, Long Beach, Seattle, San Francisco, Baltimore. And yet we've never had that constant priority being put before the Harbor Commission. And I think this person can advocate for those priorities. And if we're not careful, the port does sometimes fall back into the mode of goods movement, which is clearly the primary focus. But I want to remind the port day in and day out, which is why I'm okay with this position, that there is another mission, another obligation, and that's to listen to the people of San Pedro, listen to their dreams, their hopes, their visions about having this grand waterfront, this world-class waterfront. And I would expect the amount of money that this salary would bring is well worth it if, in fact, we can build a billion-dollar waterfront that has the potential to bring in tourism, to attract people to spend their dollars in San Pedro and in Los Angeles. We know that tourism has surpassed goods movement as the #1 industry in this region. That's a sad tale on one sense because we want goods movement to pick back up, but it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to look at a new economy in San Pedro and a new economy in Los Angeles, and that's tourism and those dollars that tourists bring. So I think this person has a very valuable role to play, and I think this person can continue to remind the port executives, continue to remind the Harbor Commission that the people of San Pedro do want something grand, do want something fabulous, and do want something that will ultimately revive the economy in San Pedro. So I'm okay with this. I appreciate the questioning, and we should always hold our proprietary departments accountable. And we want to, with this, if we so choose to approve this, we want to continue to ask you, Molly, to continue to scrub your positions in the Harbor Department and see again if we can continue to maybe transfer some general funded positions in the city as we move to get out of this economic crisis. Thank you very much. I urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Mr. Alarcon.
Council members, I think this is an outstanding idea, but actually I would support having 15 of these positions, one in each council district, to promote the activities of the harbor. And I'm not being facetious. The reality is that the people in my district that are 50 miles away from the harbor don't have a good understanding of what the harbor does and what it's all about and how important it is to our economic engine. And it's not just about talking to the people that don't know about it. Very specifically, we need to talk to the businesses who manufacture in my district district and how they can make better use of the harbor. We could educate the next generation by going to the schools and giving them tours of the harbor so that they understand their connectedness to the harbor. We should do the same thing with the airport so that the people understand what it is those functions do that are so far away yet so important to the economy of my district, and not just my district, but the entire San Fernando Valley and other areas that don't know a lot about it. And I would argue that a lot of the people that live in the harbor area don't know enough about the harbor. So I obviously support this position, but I would also support an expansion of the Community Affairs organization to incorporate these positions in a way that the people of Los Angeles will have not just a greater appreciation for the harbor, but will have a better understanding of it, and more specifically, the businesses will be able to use it most effectively in planning for their programs. In fact, there may be a lot of import-export opportunities that a small business in the Northeast San Fernando Valley might not have a clue about otherwise, and might expand their business opportunities and create jobs in other parts of the region just by virtue of having a better understanding of how to use the harbor. So I support this, and I would support a proposal to expand it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Councilmember Alarcon, we already citywide have boat tours and other things that we offer to both kids as well as adults that want to see and view the harbor. So I'll take your comment seriously and see what we could do to expand it even more so than we currently have. And to Councilmember Cardenas' question, I don't have the exact cost. I believe it's slightly under 140, but I'll get back to you. I should have that number. I apologize.
Mr. Cardenas.
So on that point, the salary range is as much as 140?
I believe it's under. I don't have the exact number, so I don't want to quote something I don't have. I should have it with me, and I apologize. I don't have the exact range.
So is this person going to be someone who's doing a lot of work out there in the community, or is this going to be someone who's actually managing people?
They're going to be doing a lot of work directly in the community, but we also want to make sure that they're at the sufficient level that they're dealing with elected officials and other people so that they could have that level of expertise and I don't want to say political savvy, but, more expertise in order to be able to explain projects to larger groups. But they are directly out in the community, and they will not be managing, a staff directly.
Okay, yeah, if you could...
I'll get you the exact number.
Give me
Again,
the
my
exact
apologies.
range and the title, position, category, all those things.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that matter is now before us, colleagues. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Very well. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, is item number 1, and that was being held on the desk, I believe, for Mr. Labange.
Yes, Mr. Labange, number 1, sir.
I don't know who's going to ask, Mr. President, but I read in the papers that they're going to close the parks and close the libraries, and I think that's obscene, okay? And I want to say out loud that no park is only going to be closed from the hours that are legally posted by this city council. There are hours of operations. There may be some adjustments in the buildings, but the parks will remain open. And I've been working, Mr. President, with our library department to try to create hours that we can afford. And we want to bring those forward so we can't close these libraries as well. So I don't know who could speak up here, whether it's someone from the CAO's office or someone from the mayor's office.
Mr. Labange, we will bring the CLA, the CAO forward, and I think you're referring to the news conference yesterday with the mayor, who stated that other than essential services, the city would not be in operation 2 days a week. I think that's what you're referring to. So if we can have the CLA and the CAO...
But I want to make it clear, Mr. President, parks are open from 5 in the morning to 10 at night, or if it's posted, it's a Sunrise to Sunset Park. I don't want to let people know that their parks are closed.
Thank you. The CAO, is he here in the Ray Serrano? Can we have him come to the center table, please?
Patricia's here.
He's on his way. Patricia, you want to take... There he is.
I got the seat back there.
Mr. Serrano, I don't know if you heard Mr. Labange's questions regarding the comments from the mayor yesterday regarding closing parks and other city services other than 3 days a week.
And additionally, from the public health issue of stopping street cleaning, which will cause a public health problem.
So that's the question that Mr. LeBlanc is concerned. I'm sure the council members and the community is concerned. If you gentlemen can please address. Mr. City Attorney, within the guidelines that were structured on this matter?
Since the agenda description talks about possible actions addressing fiscal year 2009-10 budget deficits and requesting the city staff and others to report on budget balancing matters, I believe this discussion could take place under this item or under the Rule 23 that Ms. Hahn has also introduced.
Very well. Gentlemen?
Good morning. As everyone is well aware, the mayor has issued an instruction to the city administrative office to come up to basically develop a furlough plan, an option to basically shut down city departments or city services, 2 days a week, beginning next week. I'd like to make sure it's clear to everybody that his instruction to us was basically develop a plan within certain parameters, looking at special funds, looking at critical public safety services, look at revenue-producing services, basically sit down, develop a plan, and present it to him in the coming days. Nothing has been set in cast in stone, is final, et cetera, but our office is actually in the midst of looking at all of the different issues that have been raised. Certainly you're raising public safety issues, you're looking at public health, you're looking at all of those things that we need to maintain as a city. We're taking all of those into account and trying to look at what is actually doable for the city and to continue to provide some level of service.
Mr. LeBlanc, you still have the floor, sir.
On the issue of street cleaning, if it's a 2-day-a-week operation, many streets are posted Monday through Friday. Also, there's a public health issue. About 86% of all debris that's in the street is within a foot of the gutter that goes down the drain, and then we'll be spending more cost to pull it out of the rivers and the streams and the ocean. So that does not make sense to me to stop street cleaning. That does not make sense to me to stop our park system. We did come up with a plan about our libraries for hours that would make sense, that would adjust that. We have to put this on the table. I even talked to the Parks Department, I hate to even say these words, that they may have to close part of the hours for the observatory, which is for all who visit Los Angeles. So these are things that I think we want to know about. And the other problem, too, in the densely populated parts of the city, there is weekly street cleaning, and it's very difficult to find parking, and this would be absolutely confusing for the citizenry if they have to move their car or not move their car. Will they get a citation even if the sweeper doesn't come? It's very challenging, Ray, and we need to get the right answers to do the right things.
And I would agree. Certainly there are a whole host of issues that we need to address and take into account before we present a plan. The plan needs to be well thought out and certainly address all of the public safety and health issues that you're referring to.
Right. And there's a Midwest city, it used to be the second largest city in the country, that has a furlough plan that I think makes a little more sense than ours. Could you look at that too?
Yes,
Thank you.
While we're on this particular matter, Mr. City Attorney, we have Special 1, which I think falls in line with this.
Yes, Mr. President. Just yesterday, the mayor requested the CAO to develop a plan to shut down certain city services twice a week. Immediate action is required for the City Council to receive a briefing from the CAO before the CAO proceeds towards implementation of this plan on April 12th. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Very well. So we're going to vote on that matter. On the findings, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Very well. Now the matter is before us, which we will include with the current discussion. Very well. Okay, so we'll proceed. They just clear. Can you put those names back up on the queue, please? Who was the next speaker? Ms. Hahn. Ms. Hahn?
What are we doing, Special 1?
Well, we're Special 1 in coordination with item 1.
Right. Right, it makes sense, because I introduced this so we could talk about the idea of shutting down the city. Are we taking this as a Rule 23? Yes. Oh, we just did.
It's on the floor, so you have it, Ms. Hahn.
Oh, that's good. Well, colleagues, I was very, obviously, as you were, very concerned when we read the executive order that starting Monday, there was a proposal to shut down the city for 2 days, and I just had a lot of questions about what that meant. One, I want to make sure, does the mayor of the city have the authority to make this executive order? I'm really very concerned about some of the coalition that we actually made some agreements with last time, and how does that affect them? Can we do that? Do you have to reopen those negotiations? I'd like to know how much money this actually saves the city. I'd like to know, what the plan is for those days of the week that the city is shut down. I'd like to know what days of the week are we talking about. What does this mean for communities and service impacts? And what is the process that we take to shut down the city 2 days a week? What does that mean exactly? We just put up closed signs on all of our doors? Does that mean this city hall gets closed? Does it mean all the city halls, the whole city shuts down? What exactly does that mean? Do we still pick up people's trash on those days? Are police officers working? Firefighters working? People's lights still on those days? What does it mean to shut down the city? I'm just confused by that concept. So I would like some clarification, as I think the public wants to.
And Ms. Hahn, you may add, we have council meetings Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday if we shut that down.
Right. But yeah, what days are we proposing to shut the city down? Okay. And what does that mean?
In terms of, I'll try to go in order here. In terms of the mayor's authority, I know that there are a lot of upset employees. The bottom line is the city is not going to shut down 2 days a week starting next week. The mayor does not have the unilateral authority to do that. Currently, there are furloughs going on now. As you recall, the council adopted a emergency resolution that provided up to 26 days per year, which EAA is already experiencing. The coalition agreement protects them from any furloughs this year. So in essence, as we sit here today, the only groups that could be subject to this would be non-represented employees, in essence, department management and the CAO in the middle of budget. So in order to implement a closure 2 days a week, the council would have to adopt another emergency resolution, and it is a meet and confer obligation with the unions in order to proceed. So it is not something that can happen, again, unilaterally. I think I've addressed the first two, how much money we'd have to get back to you on, but again, it would depend on whatever plan the council adopts in the emergency resolution and what it provides for.
Well, how much money is it being, obviously somebody looked at this and thought this was a money-saving tactic. How much is the proposal, how much is do we know?
Is about what?
Even depending, is there a ballpark of what this could save the city?
You know what, I'm actually hesitant to put a number on that at this point, because certainly we have to look at the issues. And I would like to emphasize something that Jerry said, that the city is not shutting down beginning next, on April 12th. Basically, the instruction is to develop a plan
The city is not shutting down.
That is correct. And certainly as we work to develop a plan, as we take in all of these issues that you're raising, the trash and et cetera, we would have to come back working within the MOUs, whether or not a new resolution is adopted, we would have to bring all of that information back to you in order to make an informed decision.
How long will it take us to have a plan on what that means to shut down the city?
The mayor's instruction was pretty much come back immediately.
Okay.
And so I know our staff is working and trying to develop a plan now as we speak.
But come Monday, the city is still open.
The city will still be open, yes.
Okay. I didn't know if you had anything more to...
I think your last question was about process, and I think I addressed that. In order for it to happen, the new resolution has got to come through the council, and the council will have to concur on the plan.
So, and these would look like furlough days. Is that what they would look like?
Yes.
Essentially,
And
yes.
so these, if we talk about shutting the city down, then all their days would have to be on the same 2 days? Is that how it would work? We don't know.
We don't know, but presumably we'd have to find 2 days that it would make the most sense for the city to shut down. And I think, as Mr. Zine indicated, the charter requires the council to meet 3 times a week. So depending upon when those days fall, we would have to look at that as well. So.
Okay.
Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to review some facts with the CLA. And this motion, which was signed and introduced today, talks about taking a transfer from reserve fund to meet current cash flow needs while we still make other simultaneous efforts, including some communication coming out from the council leadership to the Department of Water and Power to ask them to honor their commitment. But just to review the facts, the council did do a motion on April the 6th, 2010, asking the Department of Board of Water and Power Commissioners to fulfill their transfer commitment, and it highlights the fact that if the revenue transfer is not received, it would compel the city to drain its reserve fund and would also trigger further reductions in staff and services. And we ask them to make a very swift and appropriate resolution to this matter because we still have time to accomplish this, and ask that this be included in the CAO's next FSR, Financial Services Report, which will be coming out this week and will be heard on April 12th in Budget and Finance. Is there anything that you need to add to that, that we need to know, let the public know, to make sure that people are clear this is what we're doing?
I don't believe so. And again, to be clear, there certainly is, there's, I believe, almost a $200 million balance as we sit here today in the reserve fund. There is sufficient money to transfer. And as you recall, we've been talking since the mid-year about the need to rely on the reserve fund. So the transfer was expected. To be clear, this is not new information, but this instruction to deal with it in the FSR next week is fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Koretz?
Yeah, did I hear that the mayor can't do this unilaterally?
Yes.
Well, is there some way to get a message to the mayor? This council, in their wildest dreams, would never approve a 2-day-a-week furlough, so can we just stop chasing our tails when we've got so many more important things to do? And just tell them not to waste a lot of staff time and work on something that we need to do, like getting all the early retirements done, even working on the layoffs, which I oppose. Why are we spending time studying something that will never happen except in the Alice in Wonderland movie? We're not going to lay off people or furlough people 2 days a week. So if we can give a bargaining instruction, I would say we're bargaining with the mayor. Start working on stuff that actually is a possible solution. This can't be it. If he can't do it unilaterally, he should stop wasting his time.
Mr. Weezer.
That's very difficult to top, and I think a lot has been said there, but I don't have a whole lot of questions because I think this council has been discussing a number of ideas, a number of possibilities, and we're going forward and studying them to see if it's possible or not as quickly as possible, and I think this is one of those ideas. But I do think that we need to do a much better job, both the council and the mayor's office, of communicating with one another, because we're in here discussing one issue one day, something gets announced in the public the very same day that I had no idea about. And for us to move forward together and resolve this most difficult financial situation we're in, we need to start better communicating with one another to make sure that we're on the same page, moving together, and that there are no more surprises. I'm really looking forward to getting the mayor's budget, because I think that's going to give us a better parameter and a process by which we could follow and not continue to have crazy ideas here and there about what we can and cannot do. I know this particular instance, it was directed more at the DWP discussion, not so much at the budget, though it's related. We need to get on that mayor's budget so we have a parameter and a process that we could follow. and aim and this gamemanship that we've been doing. So there's really no questions here. It's another great idea, in my opinion, as a number of others that are on the table. But we got to get real about what are some realistic solutions to this budget mess we're in.
Mr. Cardenas?
Thank you very much. So can you remind us again where the authority lies on the directive that was announced by the mayor yesterday?
In order to, in essence, start furloughing people 2 days a week, the city council will have to adopt an emergency resolution that lays out and authorizes the furlough plan.
Okay. So basically, it's a policy matter. It's not just a directive. It's something that actually has policy implications.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's obvious, but I just wanted to repeat that. Now, to question of the CAO, this announcement or this directive, was that a directive as a result of the option A, B, C, D, E, F, G that was given to the mayor and his people from the CAO, or was this something that the mayor's office seemed to come up with and they just went ahead and shot with it? I know I'm putting you in a tough position. I'm just asking you factually. Was this an option that was presented to the mayor's office from the CAO's office / CAO?
As far as in the current year to resolve current year issues, no, we did not throw this on the table.
Hold on, can you get a little closer to the mic and repeat yourself?
As far as addressing our current year fiscal problems, we did not throw this on the table, put this on the table to help address the current year issue.
Okay, so it appears that on the current year issue, which has to do with going forward almost immediately with some kind of 3-day work week for the non-identified staffing positions that are not directly related to public safety and or generating positions, et cetera, as outlined by the mayor. That was not, as far as you know, that was not an advice that was given to the mayor or his people from the CAO's office, as far as you know?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. And when did the CAO's office get notified of this idea? Was it in a document before or after the press conference?
The information came out just prior, I think before the event yesterday.
So shortly before the press conference. Yeah. So the CAO's office found out about this idea, this announcement, only shortly before everybody else in the city and whoever watches television found out.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rosendahl.
It might be Alice in Wonderland, or it might be the guy saying, the sky is falling, but to impact our workers in such a way to say 2 days a week you're not going to be on the job is over the top. It's not even a negotiation strategy. It just shows a disorganized situation. People have been calling me, what does this mean to me? How does it impact my life? I mean, this is a little bit over the top, and frankly what we need to do is take a deep breath, look at where we are. Your bottom line is we have the money to make it through this year. Give us again the recap, Jerry.
Well, in terms of the reserve fund, with the DWP transfer, we would expect to be somewhere in the order of 70 million plus in the reserve fund at the end of the year. Without the DWP transfer, it looks like there would still be enough money in the reserve fund, but there would be virtually nothing left at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so obviously we have to figure out how to build up a reserve fund again. What other suggestions are there? Other than as we're working with the DWP, right now there's discussions around the horseshoe. Should we do this or should we do that? What would be your recommendation at this point?
Well, largely, again, to continue with what the council has been doing. Again, I think this crisis came up because of the balance of the DWP transfer. Since the council has started meeting, the projection on the reserve fund was $30 million at the end of the year. So through a variety of actions, it looks like we've added about $40 million to that. And those efforts continue, transferring of positions, completing the ERIP issues, contract reductions, issues. So I think aggressively continuing to pursue all of those, getting more debt collection, all of the issues I think you're pursuing are exactly what we need to do to get more money in the reserve fund.
Ray, when you heard the mayor yesterday say 2 days a week, was there any work done on that? How much money we would save? What that really meant, or did you just catch that as a political, statement?
I am hesitant to throw a number right now because we certainly have not developed a plan at this point. I mean, we need to really figure out what we would do and what we would not do. And so at this point, I can't give you a number. What I would like to tell you is on your point. We are about to release our next financial status report, and it is going to show some improvement in revenue. It's going to show some good news in departmental shortfalls. It's going to show some of the actions that the council has taken. All of these things have resulted in positive news for us in the sense that we are moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Now, certainly the DWP transfer is an issue, and if we were to get it, our reserve fund at the end of the year would be healthy. Without that, it will be much slower than we would prefer. But we are in a much better place than what we reported, just 2 months ago, 3 months ago with the mid-year FSR.
Okay. So when the mayor says that starting the week of the 12th, there'd be these layoffs, can he say that, and can he accomplish that?
No.
He doesn't have that authority to say that or do that?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Alarcon. Well, how about Mr. Labange, then we'll come back to you, Mr. Alarcon. Mr. Labange. Mr. Labange.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Serrano, you've been to the new Emergency Operations Center, right?
Yes.
On Temple Street, right? They got all those big boards, all those conference rooms. I would like to ask a friendly amendment, if I got a friend on the city council, that we ask you to do your planning, get out of these conference rooms here. This is an emergency. Use that big new room. Use those magic boards. Figure out whatever plan that we have to figure out, because it's frustrating not just to our employees, which is very concerning to them because they don't know what tomorrow brings. That's another good movie. But at the same time, for the people who we serve, we have to come up with a plan. This is like the Dodgers getting ready to play baseball and not having a team ready for the lineup. This is like when the Rams were here, having, I don't want to say no quarterback, but having no offense that we're going to move forward. It's been going on a little too long. And you're right next to Ms. Hahn always complains about the lack of action to get the ERIP in place. You're right across the street from the personnel building where they could come in and give you information. That's a suggestion. It's a friendly amendment to direct them to look at that space or some other space that would give you an opportunity to take your jackets off and figure this thing out and come back and report. Because for every action, there's a reaction. And if you stop sweeping the streets, you're going to cause a public health problem. And then if you're going to confuse neighborhoods, and there's going to be problems in that environment. And at the same time, too, there's a little bit of a citation that is not going to be given that encourages people to follow the law that will affect your bottom line. Thank you. Do I got a friend in the council?
Friend.
Oh, Janice, come on. But I think they should. We've been doing this since early April.
Now you're getting unfriendly. You're getting unfriendly. Okay. I will second it, but it doesn't sound like there's the will of this council for any planning to take place to shut down the city for 2 days.
Ms. Hahn, you seconded it very well. What I would suggest is that the CAO, the CLA, use whatever facility they see appropriate to carry out the mission that they have, the tasks that they have at hand. Very well. So we can accomplish that. Mr. Alarcon, it is now your turn.
Tom,
Mr. Alarcon.
You do have a friend. Good. What happened to the 4,000 layoffs? I mean, I thought we were moving in a train wreck to cause 4,000 layoffs, and all of a sudden we've got 40% furlough time. Well, which one are we doing? How are we going to injure the employees? Layoffs or furloughs? Which one are we going to do? Which trigger are we going to pull? That's a serious question. I'm asking, which are we doing here? Because one greatly impacts the other, and I'm asking the CAO, how do we balance these two
It is a very good question.
enormous proposals?
It is a very good question, and the question is...
Let me ask one more question before you answer. Does this mean that if we do the furloughs, we're still going to we're doing the furloughs because we didn't increase the DWP rates and generate the transfer of $93 million? That's the press release I read from the mayor. That's how I interpret it. If I'm wrong, somebody else can explain it. And I support the rate increase, not for that reason, but because I think we need to invest in renewable fuels. And that's why I wanted the 3-cent investment, not the penny investment. With a 3-cent investment, we could generate $1.6 billion $700 million in bonding capability to really drive the renewable resources that we purchase, as opposed to 1 penny, which gets us a little more than $200 million, and that's hardly going to change the environment and the economics for renewables. So I'm for the rate increase. But if we do the rate increase, that'll take the furlough idea off the table. I'm still confused by the 4,000 layoff proposal, which I thought we were moving forward, and now if we do the furloughs, then we only get half the benefit on the layoffs. So now are we supposed to do 8,000 layoffs? I'm really confused by this.
So a couple of things you asked, some very good questions, and certainly it comes down to balance. As I understand, the mayor is concerned with the current year situation. We have told him that things are improving, but we would end the year with a low reserve fund. He is trying to build reserves as we move into next year, knowing next year we have concerns given the $484 million shortfall. As I also understand it, the mayor is preparing the list that he's going to submit to council as requested regarding the layoff list. We're working with his office for him to help develop that, and that will come out in the next few days, as I understand it. At this point, the list will be tied somewhat to the budget that he's going to be proposing, though this particular furlough option is something that he's looking in the current year to help deal with what I'll call the ability to increase our reserve fund and to save some money.
So do we do the 4,000 layoffs in addition to the 40% furloughs?
As I understand it, they would be both, yes.
It would be both. So that's the equivalent of like 6,000 layoffs?
Well, given that there's only minimal time in the fiscal year, since we don't have
so we're only going to furlough them until June 30th?
As I understand this particular plan, it's only through the end of the year. The plan that we were asked to develop is through the end.
So we're just going to furlough them until June 30th, and then we're going to lay off 3,000 more people. Is that the plan?
There would be additional positions.
That's a hell of a plan. Folks, we got to vote the rate increase. No kidding.
Thank you, Mr. Alarcon. Mr. Cardenas?
So I feel like,
I thought the DWP was sitting on $1 billion. I don't know what that has to do with anything this month. Now, what kind of questions are you allowed to answer without us going into closed session? Or because I have some questions, and I think they might have to do with, they might get into bargaining issues or what have you. We would have to go to closed session for that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Mr. President, I have some questions, and I think that it involves going into closed session. This item was scheduled for closed session, right? Correct? Okay.
City Attorney?
It's scheduled for a possible closed session regarding instructions to the labor negotiator, so it's a limited closed session only as to instructions to the labor negotiators, which would be the CAO in this case.
Okay. All right. Then I want to go into closed session.
Before we do that, we have three public speakers. If we could take those public speakers before we do the closed session. The public speakers that we have on this matter, Candido Morez.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is exciting times in Los Angeles, and I want to thank each and every one of you. I've been here since 1991, and it's through difficult times that we find leadership. And I want to thank all of you, Ms. Perry, Mr. Garcetti, Mr. Parks. Mr. Kokorian. Again, you were before the neighborhood councils a couple of weeks ago. And again, it was just, it was wonderful to see you meet with us, to connect with us, and I thank you for that. But Mr. Alarcon, you know, I have a lot of respect for you, but when you talk about, let's just do a rate increase, the backs of the people of this great city, it's like watching the Titanic. It's like watching the Titanic movie. The ship is sinking. All the people with the money are on the safe boats. That's DWP. They have our money, and they don't have the guts to come in and try to help us. This is like a sinking ship. And I want to thank those of you that are taking the lead in this, and hopefully we'll see the future mayor of this city. So I hope that you'll work with the mayor to come up with solutions. Mr. Garcetti, we look forward to your leadership. And again, I'm proud to announce that I live in the 12th district. Mr. Smith, I appreciate the greatness and kindness that you're showing. Mr. Cardenas, I just want one thing. We have a gentleman in your district who did a lot for the children. We've asked for a certificate for him for almost 9 months. Miss Eddie, your staff member, says that we're going to get it one of these days. I hope that you'll speak with Eddie about getting your certificate for someone on the boulevard who's done a lot of great things for people in the community, children, etc. So we hope we can get that certificate before 2011. So again, can we look into that?
Thank you. Arnold Sachs.
Excuse me, Mr. President.
Mr. Cardenas.
Point of personal privilege, I think this particular constituent is just pandering to the cameras. Mr. Mares, I have responded to putting in sidewalks, putting in trees, things that you personally had been asking of the city for decades, and you're a wonderful constituent. You do a lot for the community, and I commend you for that. You have come to me with a lot of personal things that the community needs to get done, and my staff and I have responded tremendously to that. We have been, in fact, responding to many requests of yours, and certificates have been given out to many people that you have personally commended and asked us to commend as well, and we've done so. So I appreciate your requests, but at the same time, please understand, Mr. Mares, we are responding to many of your requests. Thank you.
Okay, this is not the item that we're discussing at this particular time. Mr. Sachs, it's your turn. Mr. Sachs, your turn on this particular item. Mr. Alarcon, did you have a comment, or after public comment? We'll go back to you. Mr. Sachs?
Yes, thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs. Here's my concerns about this two-day threat. The bond ratings that you so despise, Councilman Alarcon, you think the banks are going to pay close attention to a city that's going to declare bankruptcy, that the mayor's saying he's going to shut down 2 days a week? And federal funds, the mayor just sent some people to Washington. A few people went to Washington to request federal funds for programs. You think they're going to say, there was a story in the Wall Street Journal, there was a story in the New York Times regarding this 2-day shutdown in L.A. You think they're going to say, hey, that L.A., they got their crap together, let's give them more money. And the mayor's transit plan, his wimpy hamburger plan, give us the money today for a hamburger tomorrow. Give us the funding for the transit programs we want today, and we'll pay you back later with funds that we get. Oh, by the way, we're going to shut the city down for 2 days. Don't worry about that, though. Don't let that affect your thinking. Again, the layoffs, the 4,000 layoffs. This has been discussed. This number was talked about since last year. The ERIP and the layoffs was 1,000, was 3,000, was 4,000. And now, this $79 or $93 million is affecting the 4,000 layoffs. You need to act on those 4,000 layoffs. How many people have been laid off up till now? How many positions have been eliminated? How many people have been laid off because eliminating positions means you transfer them to the proprietary departments, move people around? I'm not for anybody losing a job, but for so long you have let money seep out of this boat and not done anything about it. You had the LA Live, you gave them 10 years of public safety for free, and now they're getting 30 years of bed tax free at the new Marriott. You have so many projects that you've wasted money on, and the layoffs have nothing to do with the $79 million.
Thank you. Our final public speaker on this item is John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. More in sorrow than in anger. I've known the mayor for 20 years, almost, when he was at UTLA, my union. He was a bright young man. He was on his way up. It's sad to see the way he has self-destructed. I have a question. Who is his physician, and what medical drugs, is he on? Is he on any drugs that contain amphetamines?
Mr. Walsh, that's not the question before us, Mr. Walsh. Stay on the topic, please.
Has this city become dysfunctional? Why is the rest of America laughing at us? Why are we a 3/5 of a city? And I was wrong. I meant to say in Saudi Arabia, Thursday and Friday is the weekend. Saturday and Sunday are working days. But in the entire world, we're at 5 days. He spoke. He tried to extort the city by saying he wouldn't give DWP money to the city, the $70 million. That's money from his toadies over there. When the CAO scraped up enough that we can get through on the reserve fund. You know, I remember what my mother and father told me when I was 6 or 7 years old. Fight back. The bully will always run. So I went back there and punched him in the stomach, and he was a foot taller than me, and he ran away. The mayor is in serious physical debility. He's debilitated. We will not allow our city to be extorted. The Titanic was destroyed by an iceberg. If LA is destroyed, it will be destroyed by a mayor. If you want to know what's going on, HollywoodHighlands.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Alarcon, before we go into closed session.
Members, I just wanted to clarify, when I said we should support the rate increase, it's not independent of this item. It is connected to it. I believe we're going to vote for a rate increase at some point. All the consultants said that, the ones that we hired, the ones that DWP had, and the mayor agreed that we need a rate increase. And, there were, I think, 4 council members who absolutely refused for individual reasons. There were 2, I think, that were opposed to any rate increase just because. And 2 said they didn't get enough information. But there were 11 of us who at one point or another said, we don't have a problem with some kind of rate increase, we just need to clarify the dynamics of that rate increase. What I am saying is because we did not make a decision on that rate increase, we're now being, the employees of the City of Los Angeles are now being held hostage, and we've got to get to that decision, whether it's 5.1, 6.2, 3, and 3, whatever it is, we've got to do it. Now, for my part, I want it to be as environmentally inclined as possible, and that was the mayor's proposal, with 0.3 out of the 0.8 being dedicated in a lockbox to environmental power purchases. That's the most environmentally friendly position, and that's why I support that portion of the rate increase. But because we are now being held hostage, we've got to make that decision. We've got to pull that trigger, and we got to stand up and take the shots that we're going to take, because we don't have a choice. We either move forward with that decision, or not only do we lose the opportunities to wean DWP off of fossil fuel purchases, and I should say, we may lose job service to the community and to the city employee family. So this is something that I don't say cavalierly. We've been through this issue, both in the Energy Committee and on the floor of the Council. We know the dynamics, and I hate for us to move off on tangents, talking about furloughs, talking about a difference of $6 million. The $6 million will generate $220 million in bond activity if we do it right, and so we're not talking about $6 million. We got to focus on the ball. The ball is the rate increase. If we do that, in whatever form we do it, we can resolve a lot of these other side issues that are distracting us from the main focus, which should be ours, which is the budget. We have not resolved next year's budget. We have not answered the question of how many layoffs we absolutely need. We've on a whimsical basis declared that 4,000 is a magic number, when in fact it is not a magic number, and we don't know how many jobs we can save in this budget. So let's get back to the focus on the budget. Let's move this rate issue behind us. Let's get it solved so we can take this furlough issue off the table, so that we can save the jobs that can be saved, so that we can focus on our energy program moving forward that is more environmentally friendly, and we still have tremendous mountains to climb.
Thank you. Mr. Garcetti?
Thank you very much, and I just rise briefly. I don't disagree with Mr. Alarcon. I just want to restate again, we did it yesterday, but I think given the urgency of the situation, I'll restate it again. This body has taken action. We did vote for. We would tomorrow. It is my belief that the majority of this council would not reject a 0.6 increase for this quarter that's coming up. I encourage the Commission to do so outside of any rate increase, because we see this in the numbers. The transfer needs to come to us. The transfer needs to come to us. The transfer needs to come to us. And that money was said that it would come to us, and it is a larger amount than any increase would have been in place. So I look forward to that coming forward as well. In terms of whether we need to move to 2 days a week of people not working, our good work, because I agree with you, Mr. Alarcon, we not only should be focused on the budget, this body has been focused on the budget. We met 5 days a week. We will get it in the financial status report, but to give you a little bit of preview of that, $39 million more will be added to the reserve fund because of what you all did, members. We would have ended up at the end of the year at $30 million. We would end up at 69 million now because of actions we have taken. There's an additional up to $23 million in other accounts that we have worked diligently on that we will get, I feel, at least half of that, maybe as much as $20 million. That almost triples. If we got all of it, it would triple what the reserve fund is. If nothing came from the transfer, which it will and it should, we would still be in the black. So moving people and scaring people that they're not going to work for 2 days a week, I think this council hopefully later can lay that to rest. I appreciate the urgency of the situation. I appreciate that the mayor is trying to make sure that we don't land in black, but the work of the council should let people be calm about that because of your hard work, the sacrifices you have made inside departments. I know this creates a very chaotic situation for general managers and for employees right now who are wondering, will I get paid? We can get through this year in the black, but we also need the transfer to make sure our reserve fund lands somewhere more at $100 million at the end of this year, which is healthier than $30 million. And I look forward to that $73 million. Council leadership is writing a letter that reflects the action we took yesterday to Mr. Freeman and the general manager, been in communication, leaving messages, and others with the commissioners. We look forward to their swift action outside of the rate increase to transfer the money. At the same time, if they wanted to make a move on that increase for a quarter, I am very confident we would approve that. That's very different than a body of no. It's a body of yes, willing to do the responsible thing.
Ms. Perry.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just want to review what we've already been done very quickly. We did make an offer to the board of the Department of Water and Power. They did reject it. They were disaggregated or dislocated, the ECAP separated from the RPS, DSM, and the Power Revenue Transfer, and they gave us our final answer, so they tied themselves up until July the 1st. I know that there is an effort, at least discussion right now, about trying to create some sort of countervailing proposal, and while I haven't seen any motion yet that has a higher percent per kilowatt hour contained in this proposal, I've made my position. I took my vote. I'm not going to vote for any more higher rate or increase until we've had a chance to vet this through a committee process, through the public process, because I feel like I made a commitment, pushed the constituents that I represent as far as they could possibly tolerate, and then the board rejected it anyway. So I intend to focus on, over the next 90 days with the PA consultants, development of a clear-cut policy on how renewables will be paid for, how the money is to be spent, so we can have full disclosure on that. Same thing with DSM, and continue to push on the power revenue transfer. We're doing it today through a letter, doing it through any number of motions that are coming through here today. But I just want to make clear I'm not interested in engaging in any sort of enabling behavior. So you don't even need to ask me. I already made my vote, and that's where I'm going to stay.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much. Is there a city attorney who's been to the center table who could tell us about the transfer?
I'm sorry.
Pete Echeverria?
The transfer.
We have...
Is Pete here?
Pete's right here. He's trying to run away, but he's coming back.
Pete. It's a legal question.
Center table, Pete.
One of our fine city attorneys, and Pete, over the years you've been involved with this. There's a lot of cases. The transfer is in lieu of property taxes, in lieu of dividends. If this was Edison, it's dividends to their stockholders. This PG&E, it's dividends to them. This is a public power municipal corporation owned by the people of Los Angeles that historically has transferred money to help the city of Los Angeles. Is that correct?
Historically, that has happened, yes.
And what options do we have legally to ask for that transfer to be completed as they promised back in August?
I think the option that you have was exercised yesterday, which was to inform the Board of Water and Power Commissioners that you're expecting the transfer to be made, I believe, by April 16th. And you have taken that action.
And does the commission make that decision, or the general manager make that decision?
The commission does.
Commission makes that decision. I just think it's really very important, members, that we continue to inform the public about this need for that. And also I would ask, too, members, and I don't know if we talked to our city controller, but if we're looking at making the appropriate discussion about any kind of rate adjustment, how about an adjustment in administrative costs at the Department of Water and Power? Could they look at ways to cut their administrative cost? Mr. City Attorney?
You can make that request.
Yeah, so I think that would be something that we should do as well, Mr. President, as we look to this opportunity to try to get through this very difficult point. Thank you, Mr. Zine. And Mr. Echeverria, always.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes? No? Mr. Reyes withdraws? Okay, we have the special one. We have Rule 23. Madam Clerk, we need to take a vote before we go into closed session.
Yes, the city attorney has advised that that would be the best action for council to take.
Okay, so we are going to be voting on the Rule 23 and on the special one. And I know that the... Ms. Kakaran?
Voting on.
This is the one that's already on the desk. This isn't the new one.
It's not a new one. Ms. Kakaran has a lot of paper there. What we've been talking about for the last hour.
It's the Rule 23 motion that's on, before council right now. The findings have already been voted on.
So on this matter, Mr. Kakaran, do you have any questions on this, sir?
As it was...
Mr. Labange had an amendment on this matter regarding the facility that they were going to be using.
Suggested, Mr. President, which Mr. Serrano acknowledged with Ms. Hahn was friendly enough to second. Thank you.
That they will use whatever facility they see appropriate for their...
Including the emergency operations center.
Yes, whatever they find appropriate. So on that matter, we're ready to vote, colleagues. On special one, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes, 1 no.
Okay. Ms. Perry, your button was pushed? Okay. You came back up on the queue. We've already done the findings, Mr. Garcetti. Madam Clerk, now the next item.
Then that leaves item number 1 before council, and I believe there's a request to go into closed session on that matter.
That's correct. So without objection, we will go into closed session as directed by the city attorney in this matter. All right, so Mr. Labange wants to keep this open. Mr. City Attorney?
Not keep it open.
No, we're going to meet in here in closed session. But go into closed session, Mr. Labange. Okay, so we're going to go into closed session. We're going to clear the chamber as we go into closed session, so the media will be leaving along with the public as we go into closed session. Thank you.
Welcome back to open session. We did just take no action on the item that was before us, but I would ask that we can continue that till Friday. If there's no objection, we will continue this item until Friday. Ms. Perry, did you want to be heard? Your button was pressed?
I'm sorry?
Your button was pressed? Did you want to be heard on that?
No, it's funny, my button is not pressed.
Okay. We will take you off the queue.
Bernie, quit pushing her button.
We had a motion that had been distributed before. We went into closed session. I believe, Madam Clerk, that's special 2. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. President, and the city attorney will speak to the findings on that matter.
Mr. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. President, and I will also represent that this item was not discussed in closed session. Since the posting of today's agenda, Fitch Ratings withdrew its AA rating for DWP's power system revenue bonds, and Moody's Investor Services downgraded the city's general obligation bonds. Immediate action is required to waive review of an anticipated Board of Water and Power Commissioners action later this week to increase ECAF to 0.6 cents effective July 1st, 2010. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Anybody else on the findings that are before us on special 2? Anybody else on the findings? If not, colleagues, we'll take a vote on the findings first. This is a 10-person vote. Please open the roll. It is just on the findings, whether or not this came to our attention before or after the posting of our agenda. Okay? Special 2, correct. Excuse me, anybody else want to be heard on findings? Ms. Hahn?
I'm actually going to move to withdraw this motion.
Okay. All right. So that is no longer before us. Okay.
I know you
Next item, please.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Okay, those items are posted and referred.
There are excuses on the list from council members Labange, Weezer, Perry,
Okay.
Alarcon, and Zine, and they all meet council policy for various days.
Those are granted.
And that clears the desk.
Any announcements, colleagues? Mr. Cardenas.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank the City of Los Angeles for recognizing Nowruz. A celebration took place over at the Sepulveda Basin. Balboa Lake is another way that people refer to that. And tens of thousands of people went. It was a wonderful event with people of all ages without incident, and there was plenty of oversight presence. And it was a great opportunity, once again, for the City of Los Angeles to celebrate cultural diversity and different issues. Nowruz is the new year that has been celebrated for thousands of years by the Persian community, and I think it was wonderful to see, once again, for 7 years in a row, we had an event in the San Fernando Valley where tens of thousands of people came together without incident. So thank you very much to all the community and the City of Los Angeles and everybody who participated.
Thank you. Do we have any other announcements, colleagues? Any other announcements? If not, can we please all rise for adjourning motions? I'd like to recognize Mr. Cardenas for our first adjourning motion.
Thank you very much. I'd like to adjourn in the name of Robert Martin Culp, who passed away on March 24th, 2010. He was born on August 16th, 1930 in Oakland, California. And what's that? Yes, I Spy. He is a very, very well-known actor for many, many years. Robert Martin Culp, American actor, scriptwriter, voice actor, and director, widely known for his work in television, passed on March 24, 2010, after sustaining a fall outside of his home. Robert Culp appeared in more than 24 films, including PT 109 and Sunday in New York. He also directed the 1972 crime drama Hickey and Boggs, starring himself and Bill Cosby. On the big screen, Cope starred in Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. Robert Cope broke into Hollywood in the late 1950s, but catapulted to fame playing Kelly Robinson in the hour-long 1965 to 1968 espionage series I Spy. Starring along with Bill Cosby, the pair played a pair of secret agents working for the Pentagon. The show broke the color barrier for dramatic television series as the first non-comedy series to star an African-American actor. Robert Colt also had a recurring role on Everybody Loves Raymond and as Warren Wellen, the father of Deborah Barron and father-in-law Ray Barone. He also appeared in an episode on other television programs such as The Golden Girls, The Nanny, The Girls Next Door, and Wings. He was the voice of the character Halcyon Renard in the Disney adventure cartoon Gargoyles. Off-screen, Robert had been active in numerous civic causes. In 2007, Cope joined real estate agent Aaron Leader in filing a lawsuit against the Los Angeles Zoo director John Lewis in the city to stop construction of the $42 million elephant exhibit and bar the zoo from keeping the elephants there, accusing the authorities at the facility of withholding medical care from the animals and keeping them cramped in small spaces. This is something that Robert Colt actually appeared many times over the last 18 months in City Council, visiting with various members of the council and the mayor's office. He's survived by his sons Joseph, Joshua, Jason, and daughters Rachel and Samantha, and 5 grandchildren. All members?
Yes. All members.
All members.
Thank you.
Yes, seconded by
Mr. LeBon. All members, thank you. Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. I'd like us to adjourn today in the memory of William Bill Samris, who passed away on Sunday at the age of 78. Bill was a paleontologist and a science teacher. He was known as a wonderful, community-oriented person who had a real love for San Pedro. After graduating from San Pedro High School and the future Cal State Long Beach, Bill spent much of his time as a naturalist studying geology and marine biology. Over the years, Bill took more than 40 trips to Baja to study the gray whales. From 1961 to 1991, Bill taught science at Carson High School. In the 70s, Bill and my good friend John Olguin, Director Emeritus of the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium, frequently traveled to stranded whales to transport their skeletons to the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles. And in 1971, Bill excavated a California gray whale fossil near the Harbor Freeway. Bill jump-started the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium by convincing the California Coastal Commission to allow it to be built, and by contributing proceeds from the gray whale fossil discovery to start that museum. And Bill also spent countless hours with the Cabrillo Beach Polar Bear Club, and even after he had a stroke, he remained regular at the group's daily beachside gatherings. He's survived by his wife, Mary, his daughters, Stacy and Penny, and stepdaughters, Teresa and Delora Birch. Delora is a local artist, and I actually gave her a presentation here in City Council last year, and stepsons, Jim and John Birch. A public memorial will be held at 11 a.m. April 25th at Cabrillo Beach. Members of the Cabrillo Beach Polar Bear Club will paddle kayaks into the ocean to spread his ashes, and a ceremony on the beach will remain. Bill has left a tremendous legacy, not just for San Pedro, but really all of Southern California.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hahn. Any other adjourning motions, colleagues? If not, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll? We will next be in session this Friday, that is the